If you've been following our first series of Produce, you might remember the interview we did with motion designer Jonathan Chong about his music video, Feather Leather. In this episode, we're catching up with the man behind the bird so he can show us how he pieces his music together. G'day, we're here in the studio with Jim from Spoonbill, and we're going to be talking about the songwriting and recording process that he uses. Jim, g'day.
How's it going?
Yeah, good, man. So first up, how would you describe your music?
That's actually quite a difficult question because it doesn't really fit into any specific sort of genre. I suppose loosely it would come under the umbrella of electronica, but it's sort of inspired by groove music at large, jazz and funk and that sort of thing, but with I suppose a modern aesthetic and take on that. So I do a lot of recording of live instruments, and then a bunch of audio editing, and used found sounds and Foley, and then also synthesized material using samplers and also hardware synthesizers. So, and then I put all that stuff together inside my audio workstation and then cut it all up and basically create a collage, I suppose.
Your music does feel kind of edited or collage based rather than something that's heavily sequenced. Are you using a lot of session musicians?
Fortunately, I've got a bunch of friends that are excellent players. I get those guys into the studio and we record and capture that live tone. So I'll set up a project, a stripped back groove, and you know, someone will come in and perform, and I'll record their tone, and they may perform for like, you know, up to half an hour or something like that. And so with that live recording, then I'll go back and find little bits of gold in there, and like a note from here or there, a run of notes, or a nice little feel or something from here or there, and that has that nice human touch. And then grab those little bits and recreate new lines with those little edits.
At what point of the composition are you introducing these other players?
It really depends. So sometimes it's day one or, you know, hour one. Other times it's after the track's really been fleshed out and it's basically finished. So it's sort of, with the whole spectrum, it really varies depending on the situations.
Do you find that you sometimes use parts from old sessions to start new works?
Not very regularly, actually. Usually I'll try and start a fresh track with a completely new sound set, and that way I find you don't really repeat the same sort of sound or feel of a track. Most of my tracks really, you know, if I've been working on a track in a certain, with a certain feel at a certain tempo and so forth, with a certain sound set, the next track that I work on after that, I'll try and do quite different, you know, it'll be completely different, because I think that way I find it more stimulating in the writing process rather than just, you know, doing renditions of the same thing, really.
Is it at the beginning of a track that you come up with the instrumentation ideas and where you want it to go, or is it once you've started working on a track for a while that you start getting the inspiration about what kind of sounds that you're wanting, what kind of players you're wanting to use?
I think it depends on the track. Often it's sort of probably after I've worked on a little bit and got sort of the foundation of the track and the sort of feel that I'm, oh, okay, because, you know, it's such a fluid process when you start something. It could go in any direction, and so once it's sort of established some sort of feel or a vibe, then you can go, oh, okay, cool, now what may work with this could be this or that, and then you know, you go for it, so.
And are you the kind of person that writes a lot of little ideas, whittles them down and follows just a few tracks, or are you the kind of person that once you start a track, you just work on it until they're done?
I usually start a lot of ideas, but then again, I work on it until they're done. So, I mean, the track's probably, guesstimate it would probably take probably a month of full-time work per track. And the track count's often over 100 tracks of audio, so it's a big job to mix. And so that month would include mixing, you know, from very start to very finish, mastering and everything.
Jim, you use a lot of tracks. Is there a main technical hurdle that you come across?
Yeah, just being organised. So one technique I've developed is to colour code my tracks. So what I do is for lower frequency sounds, I'll make them a darker colour track, and high frequencies are a lighter colour. And so that helps me stay organised and on top of my project.
Does that help you visually take cues on placement and where you can put certain frequencies without clashing?
Exactly. So exactly that. And then I also folderise like sounds or into sets such as like drum sounds or whatever, and that way, you know, you can collapse and expand those, and then to keep it organised and tidy so it's easy to navigate. Otherwise, it's just, you know, it's like looking at a termite mound, chaos.
Yeah, yeah. It's a really refreshing take on electronic music. And because you're using so many organic and human elements, it doesn't sound like the idea that I assume most people would have for electronic music.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think when people think about electronic music, they think it's going to be repetitive and loop-based. So I think it surprises a lot of people. But really, I'm just trying to make music that stimulates me personally. That's the prerequisite when I'm in the studio, is just making something that gets me off.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty in it, because it doesn't feel like you're bound by genre constraints or anything like that. Thanks heaps for sharing that with us today, man, and we'll see you soon.
Sweet. Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.